project is a study in architectural history in its local context as inputs that create a language of design. My name is Leigh Salem. I'm a partner at Post Company. We were fortunate enough to work in the hospitality space, which has really afforded us, or did afford us, the opportunity to sort of work on the residential scale and sort of the rooms and that component of hotels, as well as food and beverage and really even just arts and music programming, all of that into one architectural sort of program. And so we started working together, really try to synthesize those elements, all come from different backgrounds. And, over the years, our practice changed and sort of evolved into, residential, single family, as well as, an emphasis on standalone food and beverage. But it really came from the ethos of trying to sort of weave in multiple components of what we all love in terms of the world of design and sort of bringing disparate elements into one design. We don't have a singular expression or vernacular that we operate in or a single approach to aesthetic. We really believe that each project is a study in architectural history in its local context as inputs that create a language of design. What are the sort of architectural leading forces within that time period? And then express those very honestly. So whether that's finding the original vintage pieces or building things in the way that may be appropriate for the material and sort of narrative of the place. We hope that sort of through line of how we approach things, how we build things is recognized and resonates across that body of work. Our process always starts with research. That can be sort of just understanding the current atmosphere of which we're operating. Like if we're in an urban environment and we're looking at a restaurant, we need to understand that sort of local neighborhood. And then there's the historical research, which we very much pride ourselves on doing, which is understanding the architectural history, cultural history that has led to the place to being what it is today. So we always start with the history there and then figure out kind of what kernels that we want to bring and reinterpret and speak to for the future. But what we really try to do in the beginning of the project is listen, understand the goals, right? Like we need to understand what our clients really want to see out of that project from an overall end experience, right? Like how are they inhabiting that space? How do we want people to feel and really interact within that space? Let's take like a restaurant. Where's the kitchen? How much are we being led into that kitchen? How much of that kitchen's on show? Where's that in relationship to the bar? Where's sort of the heat or the fire, the dynamic quality that's activating the program in the restaurant? How those things are talking to each other? Where are food runners moving through the space? It's the exaggeration of those operational components of the space that's going to make them interesting. So that's the first sort of operational idea. That's the good stuff. The other is all in the details of how we make things. What are you going to do about water stains? Where are these candles going? How are we thinking about lighting within the space so that we can turn down the overhead, spot that table, but have everything else be very low? The operational level of sort of specification is obviously that's where it falls apart if you don't pay attention. The other thing we talk about with our team, if you don't know, don't spend time Googling it or spend time sort of doing high level research of what someone might say. Pick up the phone and call the person who's making that table and talk to them about the needs of sealing this with some sort of conversion varnish or whatever it might be needed so it's going to perform. But that only happens through talking to experts. Our studio is around 30 people now, and we've grown slowly but consistently sort of our time working together. We didn't bring in like a team of specialization, a team focused solely on residential or a team focused solely on food and beverage. What we really have looked to do is to find people who have really a very committed sense of curiosity, constantly needing to learn and to sort of push themselves in developing their own, their own practice, their own language. We don't have a sales team. We do have someone on our team who helps us, who's very focused on writing proposals, establishing sort of the briefs of the projects, working through that process of turning a sort of an exploration of an idea into a more realized contractual obligation. It's not word of mouth necessarily in a passive sense that someone says, "Oh, I worked with this," and it just sort of email comes into our inbox one morning. It's much more, I think, an emphasis on building personal connections within sort of our design world. But all of these projects are so layered with incredible designers, architects, lighting designers, landscape designers. And so maintaining those relationships is incredibly important as well, because once you find, oh, we've had a great time working on this, we see eye to eye, often we bring each other into those projects, and clients really benefit from having a team that has worked together and built that trust. For us, as like an overall business development standpoint, it's really just investing in those relationships and taking the time to maintain them. All of these projects are so layered with incredible designers, architects, lighting designers, landscape designers. And so clients really benefit from having a team that has worked together and built that trust. And so that's one way we really, from a business development standpoint, is really invest in sort of those relationships, those collaborative relationships. If we actually get out of our own way and listen to those experts, we become much better designers because we actually are learning through the act of just working on the project with them. And then from a client standpoint, it can often be a 5-year relationship, and very close, like talking to each other every day and figuring out very difficult problems, working through when something goes wrong. And so if we can work together and we can sit down when something goes wrong, have a cup of coffee and work through it collaboratively, that's really the basis of a very trusting and strong relationship. Once we're done, right, and there's that point when it's installed or a client moves in or it opens, and our role becomes much more diminished, right? We sort of fade away, and it now exists in the world. But the beautiful part about that is, like, if we come up with a narrative and a design that allows for continued evolution, or that allows for it to be adapted by that owner, it allows it to be more lived in, added to. What we believe is we can hopefully build something that's going to be more interesting and more dynamic than just us as a singular design firm working at this moment. And so we really try to develop at the beginning a narrative that we think is going to endure a greater timeline than sort of the singular iteration of the interiors.